Sound speed. This is Ghosts 3, take 2. Hello everyone, welcome back to Seeker Plus, the video podcast series where we take a few episodes and really dive deep into one topic. I'm your host, Julian Huguet, and this is our third and final episode about ghosts. We've covered how our minds trick us into seeing ghosts, whether it's possible to become a ghost when you die, and why you keep getting ghosted by the ladies. I'm just kidding, I'm sure that you're very handsome and have many good qualities to offer. But in this episode, we're going to look into whether there's a good side to believing in ghosts and why or how we can make our own ghosts. Not through murder, obviously, like, fun trick ghosts. So, whether ghosts are real or not, I want to talk about the good and the bad in believing in them, because I do think there are positive things about believing in ghosts. Like, it can kind of make you feel better and take the weight of this crazy world off your shoulders. One take on why people see ghosts or believe in the paranormal is that it's a decent coping strategy. According to a psychologist who studies judgment and pattern perception, it's really hard to deal with unpredictability and chaos in the world. So instead of accepting that things like natural disasters or sudden deaths happen for no reason, humans have a tendency to think that there must be unseen forces behind these occurrences. We believe in ghosts because it makes us feel less out of control. We can point to a cause. It's a similar train of thought to conspiracy theories, as in, there must be more going on here than meets the eye. People who believe in the paranormal tend to have higher confidence in their decisions than skeptics. They also make ambiguous decisions faster. There's also the emotional side to it. We don't like the idea of our own death, so ghosts are a way that people can live on. In a similar fashion, believing in ghosts can actually be good for society as a whole, because in many cultures, ghost stories are used to teach ethics and morality. Thinking about one of the biggest Halloween tropes, ghosts tend to exist for good reasons. They can't move on after death because they have unfinished business, like an unsolved murder or a poor relationship on Earth or a need for justice. Being afraid of this teaches people alive now to be careful about the way that they act. So ghost stories are a way for us to remind each other that the things we do matter beyond just our short lifespans. At least that's according to one folklore psychologist from USC. Of course, this has been abused. During the Middle Ages, the Christian Church encouraged this terrifying notion that souls could be trapped in purgatory, doomed to a life stuck in the in-between for eternity. But they offered indulgences where people could make payments to the church and have their sins basically scrubbed from the afterlife record. Kinda shady, if you ask me. Which brings me to the opposite side, why believing in ghosts can be bad for you. And that reason is, for hundreds of years, people have taken advantage of believers and taken a lot of money from them. Not great. So, let's say ghosts aren't real. I mean, come on, if you've listened to the last two episodes, I don't think they are, but I can't prove it one way or the other. That doesn't mean that people haven't seen them. They've just been fake. There's a long history of people making ghosts for both good and bad reasons. They did it by playing on the beliefs and fears that we just talked about. Maybe the most famous technique is Pepper's Ghost, which is a technique used for centuries but popularized for stage shows in the 1800s, and it's been made world famous by Disneyland's Haunted Mansion. Basically, you can use glass screens to faintly capture reflections of a room that's hidden from the audience. It's actually kind of how teleprompters work, which, I miss using a teleprompter in Seeker's studio, but it's a pretty specific reference, I'm sure, that makes no difference to you. Anyway, this is actually one of those things that's hard to describe, but I do have this public domain picture that I can use to help explain it. And when you see it, kind of makes sense right away, right? If you're listening to this on our audio-only podcast, we can put a link to it in the show notes. Or you can go to the Seeker Plus YouTube channel and watch me do it. You can do both. So if you look at this image, you can see that this audience is looking at a stage and there's a glass screen tilted towards the audience. Now that glass screen lets the audience see what's happening behind it, this actor who's up there, but it's also reflecting what's happening down below the stage, just in front of the audience, but out of sight. So, to them, watching from the crowd, they can see both the person on stage and this apparition that suddenly appears when a light is shined on them, and its image reflects off the glass. This technique has been used more recently to make ghosts at concerts, most famously that Tupac hologram, which was not a hologram, but a reflection. This illusion was done for paying audiences for the most part. It's a form of entertainment, but other fake ghost creations were done for a more nefarious purpose. They did it to rip off believers. Spiritualism was a huge part of America after the Civil War, which makes sense since so many people had lost their loved ones. It peaked again globally after World War I and the 1918 flu, and again, it makes sense. A lot of people had loved ones pass away. These spiritualism peaks gave rise to some now very famous ways to, quote, talk to ghosts, like automatic writing, also known as the Ouija board. It works because of something called the Ideomotor effect. Basically, it's involuntary muscle movement that, in this case, may be swayed by an answer or a desire that a person has in their head. You may not think that you're moving the pointer that will direct you to yes or no or spell out a word, but you actually are. Maybe if this episode gets enough likes, I'll do this for everyone over on the community tab. Should we do this? Do we want to play with a Ouija board? Could be fun and spooky. There was something similar called table turning, where the entire table would turn to spell things out. Again, no one would admit to turning the table, but they were. And reading about spiritualism now, historians and scientists alike can safely say it was all a scam to get money from those who were grieving, which really sucks, but not unlike things that we still see today. In fact, even Harry Houdini was out to unmask spiritualists, and he went before Congress to try and testify against them. I kind of wanted to get more into the engineering of some of these spiritualism frauds, but actually they're usually dead simple, pun intended. Like someone kicking a wood block and pretending it was a knock from beyond the grave, or another person dropping apples on the second-story floor to make it sound like knocks were coming from the ceiling, or table turning, or creating fake ectoplasm, which was just wet gauze, or speaking into a spirit trumpet. They're the worst, most low-tech scams, and I'm sorry, but if anyone born in the 19th century is watching this right now, you guys were a bunch of suckers. Come on, wisen up. The other big spiritualism scam, one that still continues to this day, is ghost photographs. Most of that is double exposure trickery, but it can be dust on the lens or user error that people attribute to ghosts. But the double exposure thing goes back to the 1860s, when a photographer figured it out and, of course, used it to scam people. This is back when people used glass plates for photography, so he simply had one glass plate with an image of someone's dead loved one already on it, and then he put in front of that a new glass plate. When he took the picture, both images showed up, so it was like a person was standing there with a cardboard cutout of their dead loved one and they didn't know it. Again, there's not really any deep science to dive into here because faking ghosts 150 years ago was more about creativity and parlor tricks and playing on people's beliefs. Also, fun note, in an article on Fast Company I read on spiritualism fakes, the author ended the piece predicting that things like artificial intelligence and augmented reality, along with other things like deep fakes, will lead to a new era of spiritualism. And considering that we're going through a pandemic where many people are losing loved ones, it's kind of a confluence of terrible things all at once. Be ready for more scams that'll try and trick you into speaking or communicating with your loved ones who have passed on. It's something to look forward to. There are already ghost hunting apps, and of course, those are scams too. This all brings me to my final way that people are tricking others into believing in ghosts, and that's with EMF technology, electromagnetic field readers, which they are used for finding problems with faulty wiring. Basically, they make sure that no power lines or old appliances are giving off harmful amounts of radiation. So when these things detect radiation, the LED light goes from green to red based on the strength. So ghost hunters think that when this happens, it means there are ghosts, which isn't true because we talked about this in the last episode, that ghosts can't be made of energy in ways that we can detect. Also, guess what kind of places probably have faulty wiring? That's right, old houses. My goodness, it turns out old houses have a lot of really convenient explanations for the myriad of ghost sightings that people tend to see in them. Go figure. But the reason we're talking about this now is that if you look online, you're going to see a lot of these products sold as a way to find ghosts, which is just another scam. Hold on to your wallet, folks. So this brings us to the end of our 3 episodes on ghosts. And we talked about whether or not science can prove or disprove their existence. We talked about what we know about what happens after we die. And finally, the benefits and potential risks of actually believing in ghosts. And with all of that said, should you believe in ghosts? You can if you want, because I can't sit here and tell you that ghosts don't exist. We haven't proved that they don't. We've just proven that certain experiences people have had can be explained by other well-understood phenomena. And believing just might make your day-to-day life a little easier, which is nice. It's when that belief goes too far and someone takes advantage of you by selling you a picture of a dead loved one in the room with you or pretending that they can communicate with them. That's where I draw the line and say that maybe believing in ghosts can be harmful. So, believe what you like, just be sure you're savvy about it. Thanks for tuning in to Seeker Plus. I'm your host, Julian Huguet. If you like this series, please make sure to like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe. We'll be making a lot of these going forward, so let us know what topics you want us to cover. We really can do anything. Do we want to talk about flying cars, guitars, wars among the stars? I can really get into the science of anything. I just need to get out of this rhyming rut. Well, we will catch you next time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Seeker Plus.